No human being has left Earth's orbit in 53 years. The last cruise splashed down in December 1972. Since then, no one has traveled beyond 400 kilometers above the ground. If you leave now, you will never know what they find out there. What does it actually feel like to live inside Orion for 10 days? No shower, no privacy, no silence. And what did NASA actually change about the heat shield? It cracked in over 100 places the last time they used it. Artemis 2 is scheduled to launch in 2026. Reed Wiseman commands the mission. Victor Glover pilots beside him. Christina Koch and Jeremy Hansen are the mission specialists. One becomes the first woman beyond low Earth orbit. Another becomes the first person of color in deep space. They will travel farther from Earth than any human in over half a century, and they will do it on a heat shield that failed once before. Days before launch, the crew enters quarantine, no contact with family, medical checks run twice daily. Sleep schedules are engineered down to the hour. Their bodies are being calibrated like instruments. They suit up in the Orion crew survival system. These suits are pressurized and reinforced. If the cabin loses pressure during ascent, the suit keeps them alive. They are not the space suits of science fiction. They are wearable lifeboats. They ride an elevator up Launch Pad 39B, the same pad that launched the Apollo missions. The rocket beneath them is the Space Launch System. At 322 feet tall, it is the most powerful rocket NASA has ever flown. It weighs 5.75 million pounds when fully fueled. That is 8 times heavier than a fully loaded Boeing 747. 4 RS-25 engines and 2 solid rocket boosters sit beneath them. Together, they will produce 8.8 million pounds of thrust. That is 15% more than the Saturn V. The RS-25 engines are not new. They powered the space shuttle for 30 years. Then engineers rebuilt them for a rocket they were never designed for. The crew has named their capsule Integrity. For adults, 330 cubic feet of pressurized space. That is roughly the interior of 2 minivans. What does 8.8 million pounds of thrust feel like from inside? The RS-25 engines ignite first. Half a second later, the solid rocket boosters fire. The vehicle leaves the ground. No amount of training prepares a human body for this. 3 times the pull of gravity presses the crew into their seats. Their bodies weigh 3 times what they normally do. Breathing requires conscious effort. Moving an arm is nearly impossible. The solid boosters transmit vibration through every bolt in the capsule. It is not a sound, it is a physical fact. For 2 minutes, the shaking does not stop. Then the boosters burn out and separate. The ride smooths, the core stage continues to accelerate. 8 minutes after launch, the main engines cut off. The silence is sudden. The pressure vanishes, arms float up from laps, pencils drift out of pockets. They are in orbit. The Earth is visible through the windows for the first time. A thin blue line of atmosphere runs along the curve of the planet. That line is the only thing separating 8 billion people from vacuum. For several hours, the crew verifies every system on the spacecraft: life support, propulsion, navigation, each confirmed before they commit to anything beyond orbit. Then Wiseman and Glover take manual control of the spacecraft, not autopilot. Hands on controls, eyes on instruments, proving that a crew can fly Orion through the maneuvers future missions will demand. The European service module bolts to Orion's back end. 4 solar array wings provide power. The module stores the water and gas that keeps the crew alive. Without it, Orion is a capsule. With it, Orion is a deep space vehicle. One engine burn is about to decide whether they go home or go to the moon. The upper stage of the SLS fires one final time. This is the translunar injection burn. It accelerates Orion past the velocity needed to reach the moon. After this burn, the upper stage separates. 4 people in a capsule 240,000 miles from where they need to be, carried forward by momentum alone. There is no space station to dock with, no rescue vehicle waits in orbit. There is exactly one backup plan. It is called the free return trajectory. Orion arcs behind the moon and uses lunar gravity to arc back toward Earth. Apollo 13 used this exact path in 1970, not because engineers chose it, because the spacecraft was dying and it was the only option left. That is not a comforting backup plan. That is the only plan. The European Service Module provides propulsion on the journey out. 4 solar array wings generate electricity. The module stores the water and gas that keeps the crew alive. Without it, Orion is just a shell. With it, Orion can reach the moon. Ahead of them, 4 days of coasting toward something no living human has seen. 4 days of coasting toward the moon. Earth shrinks in the windows every hour. The communication delay with Houston grows as the distance increases, about 1.3 seconds each way, enough to make a conversation feel slightly off. Inside the capsule, the crew reconfigures the living space. Equipment is stowed, foot pans are folded away. The space they gain is roughly the space they started with. 2 minivans, 4 people, 10 days. The toilet occupies 5 cubic feet beneath the floor near the main hatch. A curtain provides privacy. 1 crew member is 6 feet 2 inches tall. The curtain is the only door they will ever close in 10 days. There is no running water on this mission, no recycling system. Every drop of water was loaded before launch. Food comes in sealed pouches. A small warmer heats them to room temperature. Not warm, room temperature. Imagine macaroni from a foil pouch floating at 100,000 miles from the nearest kitchen. Sleep is scheduled in 8-hour blocks, hammock-like bags tethered to the cabin walls. All 4 sleep at the same time. There is no bedroom. The hum of the life support system never stops. It scrubs carbon dioxide and regulates oxygen and temperature. It is a machine keeping 4 people alive. It sounds like one. Exercise is mandatory for 30 minutes every day. A flywheel device bolted to the floor provides up to 500 pounds of resistance. The International Space Station has 3 dedicated exercise machines, a resistance device, a treadmill, and a stationary bike. Orion has a device the size of a carry-on suitcase. Hygiene is wet wipes and dry shampoo, no showers, no mirrors, a small counter near the toilet. Then the moon begins to grow in the windows. Day 4. The mission stops being an engineering test and starts being something no living human has experienced in over 50 years. No human alive has ever seen what they are about to see. Orion passes roughly 4,700 miles beyond the far side of the moon. That makes this the farthest any crewed spacecraft has ever traveled. The previous record was held by Apollo 13. Apollo 13 did not set that record on purpose. This one is deliberate. The far side of the moon is geologically distinct from the near side, more heavily cratered and with a thicker crust. No human has observed it at this range with modern instruments. At their most distant point, Earth fits behind an outstretched thumb. Everyone who has ever existed is behind that thumbnail. The Apollo 8 astronauts called this the most profound loneliness of their lives. Artemis 2 goes even farther. But this mission carries a threat beyond loneliness, something the crew monitors every hour, something invisible. Once outside Earth's magnetic field, galactic cosmic rays pass through the walls of Orion. They pass through the bodies of the crew. A 10-day mission beyond Earth's magnetic protection exposes the crew to an estimated 30 millisieverts. That is the equivalent of roughly 1,500 chest X-rays delivered over 10 days. NASA's career radiation limit for astronauts is 600 millisieverts. Artemis, 2, consumes a measurable portion of each crew member's career limit in 10 days. If a major solar storm erupts during the lunar flyby, the crew shelters near the toilet. That is the plan. NASA's space weather team has been refining forecasts for exactly this scenario. Getting home requires surviving something that nearly ended Artemis 1. In November 2022, Artemis 1 returned from an uncrewed test flight. The capsule splashed down safely, cabin temperatures held within design limits. The mission was declared nominal. Then engineers inspected the heat shield. They found over 100 locations where the ablative material had cracked, not the smooth erosion they had designed for. Jagged, irregular, unpredicted. The material is called a V-coat. It is designed to burn away gradually during re-entry. As it burns, it carries heat energy away from the capsule. A few inches of material stand between the crew and plasma at 2,760 degrees Celsius. That is roughly half the surface temperature of the sun. The investigation took nearly 2 years. The root cause was the skip re-entry technique used on Artemis 1. Orion dipped into the atmosphere and bounced back into space before re-entering. During that pause, heat accumulated inside the AV coat material. Gases formed, pressure built. The material cracked and blew pieces off. NASA's ground tests had not caught this. Their facilities used higher heating rates than Artemis 1 actually experienced. At those higher rates, the material performed as expected. It was the moderate and sustained heating that broke it. NASA's response: do not redesign the heat shield, change the trajectory instead. Artemis 2 enters the atmosphere on a steeper and more direct path, no skip. One continuous descent from 40,000 kilometers per hour to splashdown. This reduces the time the shield spends in the temperature zone that caused the cracking. The trade-off is higher deceleration forces on the crew during those final minutes. The same material, a corrected path. 4 people betting everything on the fix. In a matter of hours, they find out if the math is right. The return trip takes 4 to 5 days. Earth grows larger in the windows each hour. At the edge of the atmosphere, Orion is traveling at 40,000 kilometers per hour, Mach 32. 32 times the speed of sound. Air molecules compress so violently ahead of the capsule that they become plasma. The plasma reaches 2,760 degrees Celsius. The AV coat begins to burn. The windows glow. Then radio contact cuts. Mission control goes silent. For a few minutes, the crew of Artemis 2 is completely alone. No voice from Houston, no telemetry, just heat and pressure, and a capsule decelerating through plasma. Then the drogue parachutes deploy. The capsule stabilizes. 3 main chutes billow, open above the Pacific, splashdown. Navy divers enter the water, the hatch opens, 4 people breathe outdoor air for the first time in 10 days. Their legs will feel weak, their balance will be off. 10 days of weightlessness means a body has to relearn what down means. 53 years of silence ended by 4 people in a machine the size of 2 minivans. Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, Jeremy Hansen. They saw the photos of the cracked heat shield. They sat in the briefings. They asked the engineers the hard questions. Then they strapped in anyway. What Artemis 3 does with the door they have just opened is the next story.